Every civilization eventually confronts the question of what comes after its central myth has died. For modern liberalism, that myth was freedom. Freedom as the solution to every human problem. Freedom as the substitute for truth. But what began as liberation has become fatigue. The world built on individual choice and procedural equality now feels strangely empty, unable to say why it exists or what it values beyond comfort and survival. The collapse of liberalism is not a single event, but a slow unraveling. Institutions continue, laws function, elections are held, but the moral and spiritual energy that once gave them meaning has evaporated. People sense this instinctively. They speak of crisis, polarization, and decline because they no longer believe the stories their societies tell about themselves. They live in a house still standing, but without a foundation. And though few can name it, what has disappeared is the shared conviction that life has a direction, that man and society exist for some higher purpose. If the old order is hollow, the question becomes what can replace it? The answer is not to invent a new ideology or revive a romantic past, but to recover what every lasting civilization has known, that politics is never just about power, it is about order, an order that reflects truth about the world and about human nature. A post liberal future will rise only when we remember that freedom without order is chaos, equality without hierarchy is envy, and politics without the sacred is merely administration. Before the modern age, philosophers like Aristotle understood politics as a branch of ethics. The city existed not simply to keep the peace or protect property, but to cultivate virtue, to help citizens live good lives in accordance with reason and nature. Freedom meant the ability to rule oneself, to discipline desire so that higher goods could be pursued. The liberal revolution inverted this. It made freedom the absence of restraint and redefined politics as a mechanism for protecting individual choice. The result was a world where ends disappeared. Governments no longer asked what was good or true, only what was permitted. Education stopped forming character and began producing efficient workers. Law became less about justice than about procedure. The moral language of the West thinned until only two commandments remained: do what you like and don't hurt anyone. But a society cannot endure on negatives alone. Human beings need a positive picture of the good to orient their lives. Recovering order begins by rejecting the illusion that politics can be neutral. Every regime, even a liberal one, rests on metaphysical assumptions about what man is and what he owes. Pretending otherwise only hides these assumptions behind bureaucratic or technocratic language. A post-liberal politics must speak openly again about ends. It must accept that to govern is to make judgments about truth, virtue, and the proper hierarchy of goods. Order, properly understood, does not suffocate liberty. It makes liberty possible. A musician is free to create beautiful music only because he has mastered the rules of harmony. In the same way, a people are free when they live within a structure of law and custom that trains the soul toward excellence. The liberal confusion of freedom with unlimited choice must give way to a richer idea: freedom as the disciplined pursuit of the good. Every enduring culture grows from a spiritual root. Even when faith fades, its forms and symbols remain, shaping the imagination long after doctrine is forgotten. The historian Christopher Dawson argued that no society has ever created a vital culture without religion at its core. The cathedrals, universities, and laws of medieval Europe were not random achievements. They were expressions of a Christian vision of reality, a belief that all things participate in a divine order. Modern secularism claimed it could preserve the fruits of that culture while cutting down the tree that bore them. For a time, it seemed to work. Science advanced, prosperity grew, and religion appeared unnecessary. Yet, as the generations passed, the moral unity of the West disintegrated. A society that sees no higher meaning in life will not long defend beauty, truth, or even reason. Art becomes propaganda, education becomes utility, and politics becomes therapy. The post-liberal renewal therefore requires not simply political reform, but a resacralization of life. This does not mean returning to medieval theocracy or enforcing dogma by law. It means restoring a sense of the sacred as the measure of all things, a recognition that human institutions stand under judgment from something greater than themselves. Culture must once again be understood as liturgy, a shared act of offering in which work, art, and law reflect gratitude for existence. Without this vertical dimension, society drifts into triviality and despair. Modern politics treats hierarchy as a moral crime. Equality has become the only recognized virtue, even when it flattens everything noble and excellent in human life. Yet hierarchy, properly understood, is not oppression, but order. It reflects the natural structure of being itself. The cosmos is not a chaos of atoms, but a harmony of levels: body and soul, man and nature, earth and heaven. To deny this is to deny reality. Thinkers like Julius Evola, despite his extremities, saw this clearly. He wrote of the vertical man, the individual who stands upright amid the ruins, living according to principles that transcend circumstance. For Evola, the true aristocrat is not the man of wealth or privilege, but the one who governs himself according to higher law. His authority comes from inner mastery, from the alignment of the will with the eternal order. Such men form the backbone of any civilization worth the name. A post-liberal world must therefore rediscover the principle of verticality. Equality before God or the law is one thing. Equality of capacity, wisdom, or virtue is another. A healthy society honors the differences that nature and vocation produce. It is structured like the human body, many parts, distinct yet cooperative, guided by a unifying soul. When hierarchy collapses, confusion reigns. When it is restored, harmony returns. This applies not only to politics, but to the inner life. The liberal self, trained to indulge every impulse, becomes a battlefield of desires with no commander. The hierarchical self, disciplined reason, ruling passion, reflects the order of the cosmos and prepares man to participate in the divine. To rebuild society, we must first rebuild the soul. Carl Schmitt once wrote that all significant concepts of the modern state are secularized theological concepts. He meant that the political ideas of sovereignty, law, and legitimacy were originally grounded in religious understandings of divine authority. When those foundations were removed, the concepts remained, but lost their coherence. The modern state still claims authority, but cannot explain why anyone should obey beyond habit or fear. The liberal answer, consent of the governed, has proven fragile. Consent is useful when citizens share a vision of the good. When they do not, politics becomes endless, bargaining without principle. Authority must rest on something deeper than procedure, on the recognition that legitimate power participates in moral truth. The ruler is not the source of order, but its servant. He governs not because he is elected or popular, but because he upholds the justice that precedes him. This idea is not foreign to democracy, though it has been forgotten. Even a republic must acknowledge a higher law to which its constitutions and courts are accountable. The real crisis of modern politics is not a shortage of votes, but a shortage of legitimacy, a failure to connect human law with the moral law written in the nature of things. A post-liberal order will restore that link, grounding sovereignty once again in truth rather than mere will. If politics must be moral, and moral life must be rooted in transcendence, then culture is the bridge between them. Culture forms the soul of a people. Through stories, rituals, education, and art, it teaches what to love and what to despise. The liberal state, pretending to be neutral, abandoned this task and left culture to the market. The result is fragmentation, citizens without shared memory, consumers without common purpose. A civilization cannot survive when its art mocks beauty and its schools deny truth. Rebuilding culture means recovering the idea that education is not just information but formation, the shaping of character toward virtue. The ancient Greeks called this paideia, the cultivation of the whole person through exposure to truth and beauty. Dawson argued that Christian civilization once achieved this synthesis by joining faith with reason, contemplation with action. Its universities and guilds trained both mind and soul. Our future depends on recovering that harmony in new forms. This renewal will not come from governments or corporations, but from small communities of conviction, families, parishes, schools, artists, craftsmen, who live differently because they see differently. The Benedictine monks who preserved learning after Rome fell did not plan an empire. They simply prayed, worked, and kept faith. Out of that fidelity, a new civilization slowly grew. The same pattern may hold true again. Every age of decay calls forth a certain kind of person. He does not wait for ideal conditions or perfect institutions. He begins with himself. When external order collapses, he builds inner order. When truth is despised, he lives as if it was still true. His strength is not aggression, but integrity, not nostalgia, but presence. Such men and women will shape the post-liberal future more than any policy or program. The heroic man understands that power without purpose corrupts, but so does virtue without courage. He seeks both clarity and action. His faith, whether explicit or implicit, is that life has meaning, and that duty to that meaning transcends pleasure or success. In a world that worships comfort, he embraces sacrifice. In a world of noise, he guards silence. In a time of cynicism, he believes again in honor. The post-liberal world will need such people not only as leaders, but as examples. The future will not be built by algorithms or committees, but by souls capable of self-command. The recovery of civilization begins with personal hierarchy. Reason ruling passion, conscience ruling convenience, truth ruling expedience. Without that, no external reform will last. What might a post-liberal political order actually look like? It will not simply resurrect the monarchies of old or the democracies of modernity. It will blend aspects of both: the personal responsibility of leadership with the participation of community, the sacred legitimacy of tradition with the flexibility of prudence. The state will once again see itself as a moral body and not a marketplace. In such a polity, law will be understood as a teacher, not merely a regulator. Economics will serve the common good, not abstract growth. Institutions will reflect natural hierarchies, family, vocation, locality, rather than dissolve them. The measure of policy will be whether it cultivates virtue and sustains community, not whether it maximizes consumption. The ideal citizen will be the one who serves, not the one who demands. This vision is not utopian, it is organic. It grows from the recognition that man is not a fragment, but a unity of body, soul, and spirit. When society mirrors that unity, harmony follows. When it denies it, collapse returns. The post-liberal future, therefore, will be less about innovation than about remembering, recovering the wisdom buried beneath centuries of forgetfulness. Civilizations rarely reform through comfort. Renewal comes through crisis, through the exposure of falsehood and the exhaustion of illusion. The liberal world, for all its achievements, has reached that point. Its promises no longer inspire. Its institutions no longer command loyalty. Yet within this decay lies possibility. When the idols fall, men begin to seek the true again. We should not expect the transition to be easy or swift. The age ahead may resemble the early medieval centuries, chaotic, fragmented, yet fertile with new beginnings. Out of local loyalties and restored faiths, a new order will slowly form. The task of our generation is to prepare the ground, to preserve truth, to live by form, to rebuild the habits of reverence and restraint that make freedom possible. History's cycles suggest that such rebirths are not accidents, but necessities. The human soul cannot live forever in the void. The post-liberal future will not be defined by slogans or parties. It will be marked by a quiet but decisive shift in consciousness, from individualism to community, from utility to meaning, from endless choice to ordered freedom. It will see politics once again as a branch of moral philosophy, culture as the expression of faith, and authority as a participation in the divine order of things. To move beyond liberalism is not to abandon freedom or reason, but to reground them in truth. It is to remember that man is not merely an economic creature or a bundle of desires, but a being made for contemplation and virtue. The good life is not invented by will. It is discovered through discipline and gratitude, and civilization, at its height, is nothing other than the collective effort to live in harmony with that discovery. When future generations look back on our age, they may see it as an interlude, a twilight between the world of faith that was and the world of order yet to come. Our task is to make sure that twilight is not mere darkness, but the first light of dawn. The path forward begins not with slogans of progress, but with reverence for form, truth, and hierarchy.